the stereotypes around types of players and like the
Yes.
country origin is very real in sports, and the diligent, hardworking Asian or Korean in this and has long been like the character of that team. And Son bucks a lot of stereotypes because like he runs like a German winger, and so like the idea that you have this talismanic representative for your team, like it shifts a lot, it bucks a lot of stereotypes, and it cuts through
Mm,
things that makes them look so paper thin because it's like
yeah.
I'm seeing the guy score a goal from box to box here. I can't deny that Korean people got this kind of in their bag.
Welcome to The Tiger in the Room. My name is Hannah, and I'll be your host. We are a podcast series that is here to talk about the current and ongoing national crisis of anti-Asian hate crimes. A lot of us first heard about anti-Asian hate in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. We believe that hate against Asians and Asian Americans is not just seen in acts of violence. It is also seen when our community is silenced, invisibilized, and erased. We plan to talk about the challenges that modern-day Asian Americans face every day, whether it's in the workplace, in public, in media, and so on. We also talk to the organizers, activists, and change makers who are fighting for our community and fighting for change. We hope you'll join us. Hi, welcome back to another episode of The Tiger in the Room. So today we're very excited to have Josh Lee with us, who is the communications director for the Tiger Supporters Group. If you're an LAFC fan, I think you're probably very familiar with the Tiger Supporters Group, hopefully. But for those of our listeners who don't know, the Tiger Supporters Group, or TSG, as they also call themselves, is one of the core supporters groups for the Los Angeles Football Club, or LAFC as we know it. So we're very excited to have Josh, who heads up communications for TSG, and we're here to talk about some things that I love very much, just like as a fan, which is Korean soccer, Son Heung-min, or Sonny as he's also known, and just talking about like what this has meant for our community, the Korean American community, for the LA community, and just for soccer fans overall. Josh, welcome to the podcast. I think it's safe to say we have two Tigers in the room today, representing two different coasts. But from what I understand, you're also from the East Coast, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
go. Thank you for having me. And I think that's so much of my sports fandom and story is really about splitting the coast here. So I'm originally from the East Coast, New Jersey and New York. My family was kind of born and raised in Queens, moved to Jersey, Bergen County, right across the river for middle school, high school, and kind of always did the back and forth, did the easy pass, like $20 toll charge every weekend. So we're well familiar with that, and I think. Shout out the name of your podcast too. I love Tiger in the Room. I think that's so emblematic of what you're trying to do. And hopefully with the two Tigers here, we'll have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of us who may be joining us actually for the first time, you might be an LAFC fan just tuning in. The reason why we called this podcast The Tiger in the Room, the tiger is a very symbolic animal in Korean culture. So it's a bit of a homage to my heritage, but also this idea that when we talk about Asian American issues, I think sometimes there can be a key part of that narrative that might be missing our community's perspective that, in my opinion, could be, approached with a lot more nuance and a lot more thoughtfulness than what we see in mainstream media, hence the play on the word elephant in the room or the tiger in the room. And I think this topic of, TSG and with Son signing, I think this is like a key example of that, just because Son being who he is, there's so much to talk about, honestly, from that perspective. So just wanted to shout that out there. But so why don't we start off with like what TSG is? Like for those listeners who don't really know TSG, tell me what TSG stands for, how you guys were founded, and what you guys are about.
Yeah, for sure. So Tiger Supporters Group is a Koreatown-based supporters group. We are built for this club. We were born for this club. And we are one of the 9 recognized supporters group who is part of the larger supporter union, which is called the LAFC's 3252. The 3252 is a separate entity. The club doesn't own the supporter union itself. We have our own kind of bylaws and code of conduct that we all adhere by. And as one of the official SGs, like we kind of bring in our own charm, our own way in which we talk to people. And you'll see that across the 9 different ones, right? We represent either different neighborhoods or different cultural points. And TSG started out as kind of this idea between a couple of representatives of the club, as well as like someone, Korean fandoms who were working with and in tandem with the club, to really bring in this Korean fan, you know, this crazy Korean fandom that they knew was alive in LA. And I think it did take like kind of a mutual like handshake in the middle to be like, how do we get Korean people interested, right? How do we get Korean people excited? And so what started off as this idea for a Korean supporters group, what we've soon found after, like, I'm a member, I'd say 6 or 7. But after me, right, what we soon found was like, so many of us were based in Koreatown. And even if we weren't based in Koreatown, for someone like me who was not from there, I think K-Town LA has always held this kind of spiritual connection, right? As like this motherland away from the motherland, right? So like having that there and speaking on time, like from that, Koreatown is predominantly Latino. You know, and like also it is the most densely populated neighborhood in LA, similar to Queens, right? Everyone's living on top of each other. You have all these different cultures there, like whether it's Bengali, South Asian, right? The East Asian cultures of the Chinese and the predominantly Latino and Korean residents living next to each other. You have some of the Black community who lives right next door, right? Who is coming up there. And then a mix of like kind of old school white Angelinos who've been there for a while. So with that in mind, we started talking about, hey, we really feel like a Koreatown based supporters group, but we want to lead it from a lens where most of our leaders were Asian American, right? So we took some of the chants. We thought about ways in which bring Korean culture, whether it's the kind of drumming, the kind of songs we brought in. And now we're proud to say like we have the most diverse group as part of the 3252. And what we've done with that is really become an example of what Korean culture can lead and yet include all others alongside us. And we say shoulder to shoulder as this kind of motto that we have. And I think we carry that with us, is like leading very proudly as a Koreatown supporters group that is very inclusive of what our neighborhood actually looks like.
Yeah. You know, I was in LA back in June and I was in Koreatown. We were actually staying in K-Town, and I'm also from Queens. I grew up in Flushing, so I would say that's the East Coast K-Town. And LA by far, you know, the K-Town there is huge. I felt very connected to that place, even though I'm not from LA at all. And I have heard other people say, though, it's a very diverse neighborhood, which I found was very interesting because like wherever I went, it was very, very Korean in the sense of like all the businesses and all the, you know, people I saw kind of frequenting the businesses too. I'm just curious, like you've been in LA for a number of years now. How do you compare the East and the West Coast K-Towns in terms of like that diversity? Because I feel like the East Coast K-Town isn't as diverse in that aspect like you described.
That's an interesting question. I think from someone who's lived in both, I think first, we're very blessed to have be a part of the 2 largest kind of groups of Korean folk in the country. But what I found here in LA is really that Koreans and Korean culture are undeniable. You know, this is like the pure number and makeup of how many Korean people are here influences the perception of how normal it is to see a Korean face walking the streets, right? So like whether you're a Mexican or Salvadorian and interacting with a Korean person, whether you're kind of a white American interacting with a Korean person, like there is this understanding that Korean as the norm of a part of the ethnic makeup, one of the big blocks of whether it's voting power or whether that's actual just like butts and seats, like you need to appeal to Korean folk. Mm-hmm. And I think there is this power and this kind of pull that comes with that allows the people, whether it's politicians, whether it's business people, to actively seek out the Korean people as kind of an important touchstone to talk about. And I think in the East Coast, especially particularly in Queens, like I think it's much more equal footing. I remember growing up in College Point, right? And like there was still at that point a lot of Greek folk, a lot of Italian people, right, living right there alongside my Dominican neighbors, right? So you still had that kind of diverse array of people, but there were still definitely less of us, right? And the Koreans in the East Coast, like we definitely have these pockets of whether it's churches or businesses that people kind of frequent, and like that becomes like its own meeting ground. But here in LA, I think Korean folks don't have to just be one meeting ground or go to one place. Like they are really kind of ubiquitous and kind of like around the different areas and the different neighborhoods.
It's almost like the default Asian in LA is Korean. While I think in New York it's probably Chinese because there's more Chinese people out here. Would you say it's like that?
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's pretty accurate in terms of like when you say like LA County, it feels very much like that. Even Orange County, I'd say there's the amount of Korean folks are great. The Chinese kind of population here, the cultural history is really around both Chinatown and downtown, but also like the 626, which is like its own area code, its own kind of county itself. Okay. And then that is kind of an impenetrable, like the Chinese culture is so strong there. But in terms of Koreatown, being the kind of the go-to like Asian face you see, it's also because Koreatown is right in the middle of Los Angeles, like in the idea of like it's right in the heart of LA itself, and the neighborhood is kind of this kind of street that you have to pass through when you're going from east to west, west to east.
Okay, so no, I think that's just good context to have, just to get a sense of why LAFC might have approached you guys, right? Because I haven't seen NYCFC do this yet with any immigrant community. And, I'd argue Queens is home. It is the most ethnically diverse county in the world. But I haven't seen that kind of initiative really yet by NYCFC. That's probably why I haven't opted into their fandom yet. But regardless, okay, so just shifting back to TSG, how do you guys balance being a fan group that is like rooted in Korean culture, while also, being inclusive of that diversity that you just described in LA?
Yeah, no, I think what's important for me too, and also as I find my own way through my Koreanness and living here, being born here, it's like honoring these touchstones that sometimes my family didn't observe, like how big can we do a Chuseok celebration, right? How can we express what Chuseok is? I think Chuseok's a nice one because like people understand what Thanksgiving is. It's in the autumn. People want to be a part of food, and so like for my parents, who I think they were kind of tapped into more Korean culture, for them they're just like, no one's really doing it around us, so we don't really feel like the necessity to do it. Right. And it's like up to some of the second gen kids to figure out what we want to keep moving forward. And so I think we expressing our culture through a Chuseok celebration was something that our larger group had a lot of love for, because they understood what it meant to break bread at all times, but to meet around a harvest time, to meet in a cozy place, to be around each other, to express kind of our thankfulness around each other. That was a big deal, and also like one of the galvanizing points too, I remember in our season one, the Portland Timbers, who were kind of like some of the big supporter dogs in our league, right, forever. There's away supporters came to what at that point was the Bank of California Stadium, our home stadium, and after they score a goal, they have this tradition of unfurling like this huge flag, and to my horror, I saw if they scored a goal was like they painted a rising sun flag in green and yellow. Oh
my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like me and you, we see it right away.
Yeah.
Particularly there, they didn't understand what the big deal was. And like, Portland forever, I mean, to this day is like this liberal bastion, not only in like supporter culture, but like in politics, right? So like for them to miss that was like such a big deal, but also a real recognition that like they had not been approached by an Asian person before, and like so that was like a big thing, because like I was talking to like I was standing next to one of my friends who was a Mexican supporter, and then I was obviously emotional, and I trust this guy a lot with like my feelings, and like I was like, hey, do you know what that means? And he's like, oh no, what's up, what's wrong, and then I started to express to him, and then it became this larger issue of being like, there are things that we can celebrate as distinct, diverse, distinct hallmarks of diverse culture, but it also comes with a lot of responsibility to speak on behalf of what it means to be pridefully, respectfully Korean in this way. And through a lot of hours and hours of negotiating with the Portland Timbers supporters, and it wasn't easy in the beginning. Like they did not want to hear it. They didn't want to see what they didn't want to see, And
of course, yeah.
for us to come up in year one and tell them that was like, a big shock to their pride. But after many, many months of deliberation, they actually retired the flag, and
Wow.
it was actually a really big moment where the away supporters for their next game came through and they painted on a white sheet, like no more rising sun, and so
Wow.
it was. I'm reminded, I haven't thought about that in a minute, but I'm reminded of like how we lead in terms of culturally. It is both that, the fun celebration of culture, whether it's breaking bread, whether it's, doing, we do mandu for New Year's together, right?
Nice.
Like doing that with some people, but it
Mhm.
also means like sticking up for when we see something like the rising sun, when we see a comfort woman statue getting defaced, right? It's a weird thing for having to it's a weird thing to stand up together, and
Mm,
talk about this when we're fans of a club, when we're supporters. But I think
right.
said a supporter does mean more, at all times. And there's always a part of me that wants to make the Korean fandom proud, but at the same time, like this is something that is very unique to Asian American understanding, and like
Mhm.
I try to represent myself and my group in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you for doing that. I didn't know that you guys had a hand in that. I think that should have been covered more. That's a huge service, I think you've done for our community, in doing that. And, quite honestly, yeah, if you weren't going to call it out, who was, right? They weren't going to know that it was wrong or the history behind it, and it wouldn't have been their fault. But like you
Right.
said, it's a responsibility on us who do know our history. And that made me think of another thing. So I do feel that we have this issue in our community, um, where a lot of us don't really know our own history or don't really want to acknowledge our own history. And I think there's something to be said that when you're more focused on like material success or professional success, there's an aspect of almost like kind of picking and choosing what you decide to like adopt from your culture and your heritage, like what you choose to be proud of. I sometimes meet Korean Americans who I feel they're not, it's not that they're not proud to be Korean, but they just don't really embrace it. Like I know some people growing up in like Flushing, for example, or like, the people who I know will come with me to like cheer Team Korea on at a World Cup game, right? Like I feel there's like a bit of that in our community. I don't know if you agree or like have thoughts on that at all. And clearly you guys are not like this. You guys embrace this like wholeheartedly, but I think there are pockets of our community that doesn't really see that as like their responsibility or may not know like that is something that they should speak up about.
To your kind of assessment as how certain people pick and choose what to be into culturally, like
Yeah.
I think it's helpful for me to also understand I'm doing a version of that as well. I might believe that my version of that is like superior and I'm doing all that, but I'm
Yeah.
also picking and choosing what I take from that
Mm,
too.
yeah.
And I think, do I wish our community was wholeheartedly die hard about a few different things? Like inarguably, absolutely. And I do think at the same time, like there is this, as I was talking about before, the LA-ness of having this many Koreans around you gives you, again, the opportunity to say like, you can't ignore me for what I am.
Mm,
And I've also been on the other end where I'm like, I just want to fit in. Like it's a predominantly white space. I just want to be
yeah.
like one of the people, one of the guys. But I think what's made me stronger over the years is really like, I felt when I don't know something about my own culture and historically, like I feel like there is a gap or an emptiness that I don't even know how to address, and like that comes
Mm,
from like, this fall off of knowledge that we're losing from our parent generation. And like again, I have a great relationship with my dad and my mother, but for a lot of people who don't and who can't ask them directly, like, hey, what was it like doing this, or what was the tradition here? Like my dad's been trying to teach me like phrases that like is so rooted in like thousands of years old, like education. I'm like, oh my, I have no idea what the reference point is. I know all
yeah,
the same,
yeah.
what I'm saying, like, but like
Mhm. Yeah.
our references are just different.
Right,
And so
right.
for us, part of this podcast and part of this and like even this interview, it's like I think I'm always about like let's convince our people and our community to care about stuff, like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think the same way that our folks and the societal pressure to be successful in corporate spaces was so strong. Like Korean culture is hot, Korean culture, all that stuff is great
Right,
right now. It's up to us right now as communicators, as people, to be like, let's care about this thing together. This
right.
is why it's important for not only this generation but the one coming up. And I
Mhm.
think that's really the role that you're playing already, and I hope to continue it on my side here.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I absolutely agree with that. It's absolutely why we started the podcast too. And we've touched on it. I mean, this podcast was born from exactly that, wanting to, really highlight the importance of, what was, Stop Asian Hate back in 2022, to get society to care about this, but also to just encourage Asian Americans to feel, empowered that, you can have like these opinions about what's going on and be outraged, right? You can express that outrage. You can express like, your skepticism about how the media is covering it or why people are talking about it the way they are. Like, why do we always hear about mental health, but we don't talk about the fact that Asians do experience racism, for example? That all very much resonates. So,
and I wanted to touch on just what you're saying. I love the spark for the podcast at the beginning. I think the Stop Asian Hate was such a huge kind of like tentpole moment for everyone to see, like that racism and violence against Asian people is very normalized, and I think like kind of growing up, I know like we would hear stories about like old Asian men being pushed in front of trains. Like growing up in Queens, you hear about these stories, people getting hurt in the park, stabbed in the park, all that kind of stuff. And like people just kind of ignore it. And I think there is this legacy of things that go beyond like the immigrant, like before our folks or whoever immigrated here, of like incredible protest demo culture that Korean people naturally demonstrate all the time, and I think the idea of this like put your head down and strive and work for it like has not always been the norm, right, for our culture. It has been looking in the face of authority at times and being like, that's actually not acceptable, and we as a people will remove you because we've seen what power and violence do together. And so I think it's important for us to remind ourselves, that it's like we come from a legacy that goes before and beyond the 1980s, which a lot of our people ended up remigrating here, right? So I think the more reminders about that is like, it allows me to like be less fearful to step into the future.
I agree with that. I feel like, especially like in 2022, there was a lot of narratives I kept hearing about how, Asian Americans were like feeling like proud to be Asian for the first time in their lives, and they were like stepping into it for the first time. And I just remember thinking, I get that that's a real thing, right? I understand there's minority Asians who grew up in places like that, but there's a lot of us who didn't grow up feeling that way either. And why are they not being given the mic to speak out on, how they really feel about the situation? Like, we have absolutely no problem stepping up and being like, what are you guys doing to help us? What, right? We are just as entitled to the same rights, safety assurances, and validation as all these other groups. Like, why aren't we getting the same? Like that kind of, pro Asianness, like I didn't feel was really being highlighted a lot by the mainstream media. And I felt that was very telling of like what kind of narratives some people are more comfortable hearing than others. But I agree, Koreans, we're not a quiet people. We have never been a quiet people. And we have that longstanding history of, ultimately not just fighting for our own survival, but just pushing back against people who do try to, have literally tried to commit cultural genocide against us too. I think that's very much part of our DNA. But no, I totally agree with that. So shifting a little bit back to soccer. So I want to tell you something. I actually remember. I'm gonna give a little more context here. I remember seeing an interview of you on a Korean news broadcast years ago, actually, because when Son, I didn't tell you this because I wanted to be a surprise. So when Son came to LA when he was with Spurs back in, what was that, 2019, right? I think 2018.
Yeah, summer 2018.
I was following Son and Spurs back then, and I remember being so jealous, like he went to LA. And I remember seeing you because you got to meet him and you gave him like that T-shirt of Germany, like him scoring the goal against Germany. And I just remember like remembering you in particular because I felt like you were very like charismatic and you were like very good at, I felt like, articulating in that moment to Son what he meant to like Korean American people. And I'm calling this out because I don't know how you feel about this. I feel like we don't have a lot of characters like that we see a lot in our community who kind of, you know what I'm talking about? Like just, I don't know, just like, I felt like you really embraced the moment and I felt you really did a great job of like representing Korean Americans who knew what this meant to have him here and like what he means to even though he wasn't part of MLS at the time, but like who he is. So I just wanted to preface it by saying that. But I did want to ask you, so you guys have been credited in some ways for like sparking his interest in coming to LA, in the press at least, from what I've read. Can you just take me through like your experience from having met him back then and the first rumors about him possibly signing to the team, and then actually being announced that he was coming? Like what was like that whole journey for you, like from then to now?
Thank you so much for the kind words. Like that actually feel very, very warm and very appreciated. So
yeah, sorry, I had to put that out there because I felt if you haven't heard it from somebody has to tell you. So
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm honored by that. So no, thank you. I think it's fun to talk about that moment too, because it's as a way to preface this, because the whole thing was a real surprise actually. Like it was kind of a mix of like the club telling us to jump and us saying like how high, and they at that moment, we were our group was, I'd say, like probably like under 50, maybe 60 people at that time. And then the club was like, hey, one of the owners of the club, Brandon Beck, he created Riot Games, owns League of Legends, like he's like, he wants to get to know the Korean people of LA really well. And like, he can only do lunchtime at this time. And he's like, how many of your diehards can you get on that day? And can they wear Korea gear? And I was like, Rich, this is photo op, stupid photo like that. We were kind of doing that, but also at the same time, like Rich means a lot to me. The club means everything to me. So like, I'm calling in favors. I'm like, take your lunch right now. Meet me. Like we have 2 days to activate people. I'm calling up people from my church. I'm calling up people in my family. And I'm like, like wear your finest Korea threads. And we get there and we like, we get there. We're like, the energy is kind of very excited. This is like, I was like, all right, I've met owners before. It's fine. Like this guy's a tech bro and he's actually a great guy. And then all of a sudden I see like two of the big Mexican homies, Christian and Julio, walk through, and like there's like just like weird presence and an aura coming through. And all of a sudden, like they split the Red Sea, and like my eyes go blind. The sun just shines off this man's face. He walks through the crowd, and then it's him wearing the Spurs shirt. It's him like perfect skins, all 6'3" of him, kind of walking through.
Is he really 6'3"? He's that tall?
Yeah, he's tall.
Oh,
he's
okay. Yeah, sorry.
Derek Jeter's height. But it's he walked through the crowd, and like I think what was crazy about that moment too was like, I knew my Mexican friends were saying something, and then I watched the video back. It's like they're like, on behalf of the Mexican people, I wanted to our Korean friends a gift, and then Son gave through. And then what was really dope about it, we thinking about what kind of man he was on that day. In the Mexican culture, the big sombrero hat, which has been so like some people have like kind of characterized it all that, but for that ceremonial one, it's such a beautiful gesture, and for them it means a lot. And so he took it and then he wore it. I could see their faces kind of light up. Like it meant such a big deal for him that he would extend the hand that way as well. And then it's the whole point of me just sitting next to him, and I was surprised to be sat next to him, but it was just like, I just want to let this guy know how thankful we are of him. Like just a few weeks before that, they got back to Korea after being knocked out of the group stages, and then a fan threw an egg and fans threw yud at him and the team for not advancing, right? And I saw that and I was like, man, this guy gave us one of the happiest moments in recent football history, Korean football history, and we treat him like this, and maybe it was like a crazed fan, all that kind of stuff. But I just, at that moment when I saw him, I was like, I just need to let him know that we're so proud of him, and if he has heard that enough, like recently, because it wasn't the result we wanted, like, I just like, hey man, you mean a lot to us. And like, we're on behalf of not only Korean folk in Korea, but like Koreans who are here, like you mean such a great deal. You like when you take the field, we've been watching your career ever since you moved to Germany. And the big thing for us was like, you make us feel like a lot of things are possible, and I think, I think I did say to him, like, we'll see you in LA one day. And
you did.
I think he chuckled. Yeah. So I just want to make the man smile. I think I did the job.
I think you did too. I mean, the media kind of ran with that, I think, right? They were saying, you had like, it was, I think, probably meant in jest at the time, like, oh, see you in 10 years or something, and then he's here. So,
like we said,
I would take credit for that if I were you. I would totally own that if I were you.
Awesome.
Yeah. No, I was the same way. So, I haven't always been like a professional soccer fan. I always supported the Korean national team ever since 2002, when Korea advanced all the way to the semifinals. I mean, it was like wild times in Flushing back then. Like everybody was like on board with what was going on. And then I remember watching the Korea Mexico game at the 2018 World Cup, and I remember watching. I didn't know anything about Son back then. I didn't know much about like Premier League, nothing. And when he scored that goal against Mexico, I don't know if you remember it. It was just like that beautiful curling, like almost impossible shot into the corner. My whole family and I were watching. And it's like, if you've been watching Korean soccer from 2002, like I had, I don't think this is the wrong thing to say, but we don't have many players who can shoot like that, in my opinion. Like I was like, who is that? Like it was just so clear, like this guy is good, like who is this guy? And I immediately like looked him up and found out he'd been, playing for the Spurs 3 years. I didn't know, I knew about Manchester because of Park Ji-sung, but like didn't really care too much. And I literally started following him and Spurs since that day, and like just everything you described about him, like just I could only also imagine like what he must have gone through in Germany and London and all the things that he must have gone through just being who he was and trying to make it in those leagues. Like I didn't even need to read about it. I just knew he's been through a lot, and the fact he's making it, this is incredible. So yeah, I totally resonate with all of that. It's just the difference is you got to tell him, which I'm really jealous of.
One day for you too. No, that goal was really special. That goal was so special. I was in 2018. First off, the Carlos Vela, LAFC's first ever player, scored the first goal for the club. Like in the penalty against Korea. My heart ripped apart in two. It was insane. I remember watching the game with like all my friends there, all other Tigers, Mexican, Salvadorian Tigers. And I think that the crazy thing for me was like in that moment when he touches the ball, I felt the same fear that I have of like star players that the Mexican fans felt at the moment. Every time he touches the ball, they're like, oh no, like something's going to happen. And I don't think I've ever felt that on behalf of a Korean player before.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The star treatment, right? The S-tier star treatment. Like they knew, because there's few players in the game, world-class players who can, anytime they touch the ball, something special can happen.
Right.
I can feel that in the air hanging around.
When you have star players like Son who can do things that are just so out of the box with the ball, and everyone knows it. You don't even have to be a soccer expert to realize that there's something really special about this guy, and he plays for Korea, and that's like, so I'm so freaking proud of that.
It's insane. I think the stereotypes around types of players and like the country of origin is very real in sports, and particularly in footy. And I think the diligent, hardworking Asian or Korean in this, and has long been like the character of that team. And for that's probably fair in a lot of different ways, right? If you're well coached and you run hard, there's a good chance you get an international result.
Right.
I think Son bucks a lot of stereotypes, because like I'm like, he's running like he runs like a German winger. I think that's kind of the technical skill, the two-footedness, like, and so like the idea that you have this talismanic representative for your team, like it really shifts a lot. It bucks a lot of stereotypes, and it cuts through things that makes them look so paper thin, because it's like I'm seeing the guy score a goal from box to box here. I can't deny that Korean people got this kind of in their bag,
Exactly.
So even as special as he is, I think that's also what he's helped the whole and the group.
That actually sets this up for a question I want to ask you, and that's around this idea of like double standards, right? I think on this show we've explored a lot of what that looks like, not just not just in terms of just like textbook racism, but just like the ways we see it even subtly come up in other spaces, like in the corporate world, right? Like how Asians could get treated differently there. With Son, I think that a lot of the way especially the British media would cover him during his time at Spurs is a lot of what you said. He's very humble. He's very hardworking. He's this kind of model minority of a player almost, never gives attitude, always very, great in the, just great on the pitch, great team player, all these things, right? But until very more recently in the last couple of years, I think his actual like star quality wasn't something that I felt was given the true, the true like spotlight it really deserved, because so much emphasis was just put on like how much he did for the team and like not just how much he stood out as an individual. And I do feel, I don't know, some Spurs fans may disagree with me. I do feel that there was also this like a lot of talk around, if he wasn't in form one season, like this past season where he wasn't scoring as prolifically as previous seasons, there was already this talk that he was done. Like there was just like he was done as a player, and not as much benefit of the doubt being given to him. Like maybe he's just having an off season, maybe he just needs a break. That kind of coverage I would read a lot and just wonder how much of this is based on the media, maybe they'd report on any player just like this, or is it because with Son, they see someone who's supposed to be this like working horse of a player and supposed to deliver constantly at all costs, right? I'd like to know your thoughts on that. And then as a follow-up to that, I would just be curious, like what you think of how the U.S. media is covering him now, and if you've noticed anything in particular, or do you think it's been really fair or really accurate in terms of how they've portrayed him?
LA for all of its sports culture recognizes and appreciates its stars, and I think Son, how he's been covered, how he's been treated, is really being treated as like A-list, like he's being treated like a Shohei, he's being treated like a LeBron, and I think the more he feels that, I remember in the press conference after he said like I had a lot of choices, and I was like, all right, but then he went on to say like, but I chose to be happy, and I was like, wow, like that's a level where I know it can't all be sunshine and rainbows. And for all the stereotypes LA exists as, like, it's not that. There's a lot of blue collar, hardworking people here who fight to be at his games. I think I want him to be treated with the respect and love. And I think that he's been seen the last couple months here. And I hope that continues until whenever he decides to hang it up. But
yeah,
it's been a really beautiful journey.
Yeah. I watched the game recently against Salt Lake, and one of the MLS commentators mentioned how Steve, the coach, had been asked if he was concerned that other folks on the team were not getting as many scoring opportunities because Son and Buyanga have been, quite frankly, eating that up. Yeah. And again, maybe you're right. I'm glad you called that out. I feel like maybe the Asian fans, the Korean fans, like we're a little bit more sensitive to like some of these things, but I do hear it and wonder like if that is still kind of happening to a bit of a degree, because I can't imagine them asking like Messi, like is Messi taking too many scoring opportunities? Because no, I feel like people expect Messi to score, so I just want to put that out there. I want to know what you think about it.
Before Son got here, this was not a good team. Like this is, I've seen great LAFC teams even in the short time that LAFC's been a club, but it's like this was not a good team, a very up and down team that can get beat at any time and then maybe can have a good win on the road. But I think what most people realize in the LA, at least the Los Angeles media who care about sports, is like, oh, this guy, like, let's not have such short memories where like we realized we thought this team could be a contender this year. We did not, like this team was not good. And just pure play on the field wise, what he's done alongside Denny, which I'm loving their partnership because Denny's also a favorite of mine. But like they've revitalized something to the point where like we are back in the mix of it. We're back in the hunt. And I think what we love about him, the star quality that I think people, to be fair, kind of miss sometimes, you have with the LeBrons because of their work ethic, but it's like he wants to be on the field. He wants to grind. And I think that's why the American press is they're eating out of his hands right now, because like they're giving him everything that we asked for in American athletes, which is like the accessibility and the drive together. And that's a very rare thing together. And I think so I want to say like at least the LA media heads who get it are like, yo, this team was not good. Like let's get, like, he has been the crazy tide that's lifted this.
I've watched every LAFC game since Son signed. And what blows my mind is like Son is kind of going on this like continental tour of the United States right now. He's been to more US cities than I have at this point. And at every single city, there are a ton of Koreans. And they're not just Koreans, they're Korean Americans. Like you just know they're Korean Americans. These are like working class, multi-generational families coming to these games. And it makes me realize like just how large the Korean diaspora is in this country, and just like the differences between like that and just people flying in from Korea to London to see a game. There's some like differences there. I'm just curious, like, has that meant anything to you at all? Like, especially as a Korean American, just knowing like Son's kind of almost sort of bringing the Korean American community together across the country, like in a way that I don't think we've really ever seen before, other than like big events, like, you know, maybe the World Cup or, you know, something similar.
It's such a cool thing. Like I've wanted to be at any moment where there is Korean American people there, I want to be a part of, you know, like
Mhm.
it's, and the fact that like my team is the one at the center of it is like such an extra like icing on the cake thing. But it's like a deeply like soulful, like spiritual thing I think we're witnessing is like
Mhm.
we're seeing a guy who has taught us to dream bigger, to think better of ourselves in certain ways. And also like what we owe him is really like our fandom, our support, our noise, you know, and like to show people like I think Korean people are also concerned about like how they look in front of other people, and I think it's really dope to see them like go wild for this guy, you know, and
Yeah.
showcase the passion that Korean people and Korean fans can have. And I would love to continue that, like as we go into next year. Like God willing, this man plays for LAFC for a long time. Like every stop, I wanted to feel like a Korean American gathering. I wanted to feel like this kind of reunion tour,
Mhm.
and that's the way in which we can grow the culture. Like my dream is to grow Korean American fandom for the Korean national team, right? Like how can we use these moments? It's kind of like these springboards, right? To like to get people more interested in and more about their local soccer team to really get the next Korean American star who's coming through the States or what that looks like. So
Mhm.
I'm fascinated by that. I'm motivated by that. And I'm looking forward to seeing like all the Korean American fans find their way to the game through this guy.
Yeah. And what you know, what legacy do you hope like TSG would leave, not just within LAFC, but you know, within the broader Korean American community? Because one thing I've noticed you mention is that it's not just about, you know, it doesn't sound like to me at least, it's just about being another supporter group for LAFC. There is like a very strong consciousness of like what you mean to a broader, you know, community, not just among Koreans, but among, you know, Mexicans and Latinos and K-Town and also just yeah, speech overall speaking, just like representing like what supporter culture led by Korean Americans can also look like. There's just like a multiple responsibilities. I feel like you guys are aware that you're shouldering with this group. So just curious, like what is the legacy you hope this group leaves within that?
That's actually something that I've been thinking about more often recently with all these events happening. And for me, it's at the core of our message from season one. It's like if we're big in Los Angeles, if we take care of Los Angeles, we're good because we not LA has this kind of model, this kind of role in the world, but at the same time, like there's enough people and love to care about here, you know. And I think for Tigers, it's really about a generational kind of stewardship over Koreatown. We partner with two youth organizations. It's whether it's like arts and crafts, we're painting murals with them. We're doing soccer clinics alongside the youth of Koreatown. And Koreatown, for a lot of people who might not know, are like pretty low income for the most part. Outside of
Yeah.
the new like gentrification coming in, like working class and freshly immigrants to the culture. And so we want to take care of Koreatown. And because from the minute, like our mission statement from year one was really about acting as a bridge between Koreatown to LAFC and the North End, which is our section, and like having that bridge be something where both sides can walk towards each other and experience what the other has to offer. And I think we are kind of bridge kids in that way because we want to be that kind of platform to link those two together. And so whether that's taking care of our youth, taking care of our elders, and making sure the elders are getting to the games as well, keeping tickets affordable for the
Uh,
support section, like that's all at the soul of Koreatown, and we want to take care of Koreatown. I think that's the legacy we leave. We've had a chance to get to know our neighbors for the first time. Like it's like a really beautiful way. Like a lot of the people, whether like you're Mexican, Salvadorian, they've come up to us and be like, I've never felt welcome to go into that restaurant before, but now I do
mhm.
because of you guys. Same way, like I would never have gone into that taco place. I've never gone to that other restaurant, that other thing, if I hadn't had my homies here, which just kind of showed me the way. And so like it's kind of a weird chance to be idyllic and idealist, like and like really hopeful and optimistic for a lot of different things. And I want to hold that and really strive for that as far as I can go.
You're almost using Koreatown and Korean culture as like a stepping stone for people to sort of get interested, but through that, you're trying to expand like who that support is going to. Like, it's not just only to K-Town. It's like to anyone who is, quite frankly, like interested in being part of this, or interested in K-Town, or interested in being part of a supporters group like this. So I think that's incredibly different and incredibly powerful. And I think, the timing probably couldn't be better to like be able to do something like this with Son now joining the team. So I think that's incredible. Do you think Son would be able to identify with some of the, like I watched an interview with him during the press conference. He was speaking to Korean News, and he was saying that part of the reason why he wanted to join LAFC was because he wanted to represent Korean Americans, or he wanted to represent like Koreatown. And I thought that was really interesting because I very rarely hear Korean celebrities kind of acknowledging us as a separate group.
Yeah.
And, I'm sure that was also a good answer, right, to a question like that. He's in LA. It's home to the largest group of Koreans in the country. But it made me wonder, like, if he has this ability to maybe find affinity with minority Koreans just because of the fact he spent so much time abroad. And yeah, I'm just curious, like, on your thoughts on that. Like, do you think, like, not that he has it's not that he has a responsibility to us in any way. He doesn't. But I think there is something about the fact that he's here, and it's in kind of part to the fact that there is such a large Korean American community in LA. Just curious what you have thoughts on that, like what that kind of connection might look like for him and what you hope he'll do with that.
I love that he gave that answer. It actually meant a lot to me when I heard it too, because he is more like us than I think than we even realize a lot of times, because like, right, Korea being such a homogenous country, like him leaving the country and being a minority somewhere else and facing racism for all the ways he's done is like a very uniquely Kyopo experience, right?
Yeah.
Like outside of like, I mean, very real like American military presence in Korea, like the idea that you are the powerful majority will never be shaken from you, right? And my dad still walks around with some of that because like it's like that's his headspace and his heart. But for us, like we grew up not being the norm, not being oftentimes accepted, and Son has felt that in such a powerful way, and like has so triumphed over all that kind of stuff. And not that saying that like it's not a daily thing he has to do, but because he acknowledged that, I think it's a really powerful thing to look at together. And I do hope that he finds a kinship with us.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and excited to see that too. I do want to touch a little bit on this. This is a little bit maybe more of a spicier topic. The LAFC press conference was a very big spectacle. And I have heard a lot about Karen Bass's reputation. Someone who doesn't live in Los Angeles, it's mainly what I've heard from Koreatown activists and community organizers. And, there's been a fair amount of controversy, I think, in terms of how her policies have sort of affected K-Town in a way that may not be so positive. But she was there, and there was also, city council member who kind of, mistakenly thought Son was there to play for the American men's team. That clip went viral. I'm just curious, like, how did you feel about that? And maybe there's an aspect of like, this was a sign of respect that LAFC was showing for this man, in terms of like how big his star status was. But in my opinion, like what I saw was just this like huge political charade, featuring people that I could argue may not have really cared so much if it wasn't for someone with like some stature being there. But I'm seeing it more from someone who lives on the outside of all of this. So I was just curious, like, what your thoughts were on it. Maybe it wasn't really as big of a deal, but yeah, like if you had any on it. Yeah.
I also don't like political theater at all, and I hate all the pictures in the White House for either party, like and the shaking hands, and even now more so with like when you have to meet Trump and all that kind of stuff, and who goes, who doesn't. Nonsense of it all. I think the room was also very like divided, of Karen Bass being there and like taking the stage. There was like very stifled, like we're trying not to be rude, but like you are being booed off the stage right now, because it was the way she's handled wildfires, the way that she's handled the protests, and the lack of even preparation around protecting our communities has been really, really stark. I think the club invited her.
Sorry, if I could just jump in. This was also a woman who, on the record, when she was a community organizer, actually praised like the riots happening in K-Town in '92 and said that this was like a miracle that, these riots had happened. Like that was the main gripe a lot of the Koreatown activists had about her, is that she kind of justified it happening. So I just want to put that in context for people who might not know also who she
Yeah,
is.
no, I didn't even know that's what she said in the
Yeah.
past. So like,
Uh-huh.
there was definitely, and to that point, there was definitely like a tense air for her going up. I think the club would have offered the same to the old mayor Garcetti when he was here, to speak on behalf of a new star signing. This is something that they've been trying to do as well, to just be like, hey, LA, heart of LA club, why not have people there? I was more comfortable like having Magic Johnson there, right? Like that's, as someone who's an ambassador for the club already. So I didn't enjoy that. The assemblywoman was so comically off about her playing for the US. And I was like, you have no one who talks to you about that? And actually, like, she's like, what? Excited for the US? And like, it was so silent. People were like groaning. And then
Oh God.
I yelled at Teaminguk, and she's like, yeah, over there. She thought I was rooting for the US. So, yeah, it's was comical in that way. And like, shout out my leadership, but I think they got to pronounce their 환영합니다 a little more, because it was a little
Oh
rough.
my God.
But all to say, I think it was about the moment. It was about to give the man a platform to speak. He looked good. He looked great. I don't enjoy the political theater, like I said.
Okay.
If you want to show me a beloved actor, beloved athlete in that realm, that's fine. But right now, I don't think there's anyone in LA politics worthy of sharing the stage with Son.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. No, that makes me feel good to hear, because I was very outraged that she was allowed to speak. I mean, she was the first person to speak after, I think the LAFC management, right? And I was just like, this is a woman who has insulted K-Town, and she's like speaking. I don't know. I felt like, and I knew there were Korean people in that room, right? And I was just like, if he came to NYCFC and we had an equivalent of that, I would like to think we would have demanded, like, the organization had rethought that, like they should have consulted us beforehand. But I could also see a situation where people were also just like, hey, the mayor of LA is coming, and they don't. I mean, and this is like MLS. It's not even NFL or NBA, right? So this is a big deal. But again, it was just like one of those moments where I was just like, this is a moment where, as Korean Americans, we can choose, right, how much we want to kind of own up to to these kinds of things, right? And yeah, so but it's good to hear that there was people who vocalized.
I was saying with all supporters, and like we were barely basically groaning. This was even before the context that you shared. So like, there's some stuff that we don't know as well, but the place to have, because in my head it was like kind of like a key to the city moment, right? They do this all the time. A famous person, but there was a symbolic nature for who speaks first, and I think that the club chose that path, and I wouldn't have done it, but that's what they chose in that way.
Yeah, I really do hope there's consideration more, though, for like, at least more respect paid to who has helped K-Town, who hasn't helped K-Town, and knowing that Son is kind of indirectly tied to these kinds of things now, by nature of being who he is. So that's good to know. If Son were to listen to this podcast and to hear you speak, what's one thing you'd want him to know from the Korean American community? And what do you hope he'll take away from his time with the team?
Yeah, it's and this was a good conversation. I'm glad that you asked this question like later, because I've been thinking as we're talking. And it's first off, it starts with how I always start off when I spoke to him. We're so proud of you. We're thankful for you. And as we go on, it's like, we're excited to partner with you, man. Like, we haven't like, and I think I've talked about this a little bit before, but it's Tigers haven't needed a celebrity or a Son Heung-min to get our work started, right? Like, we care about a community. We are actively living in that community for a lot of us. And we're going to take care of our peoples. And we got that work going already. Join us alongside that is incredible. Like, that's also like on my hand out to Sons for whatever his civilian life could look like. And at the same time, like, we want to know like where you see yourself fitting into this Los Angeles picture. We want you to love this place the same way that we love this place. And because at the end of the day, like, I hope what he gets is like, we want the best for each other. Like, we will try and steer away from people who are just like manipulating anything situation for personal gain. Like, you're a big enough character that anywhere you move is going to be for hopefully societal good, right? So it's we take that with a lot of respect and a lot of gravitas, and we want to make sure that like the hands being extended both ways to be like, hey, let's work together, let's partner together because we have your back.
Yeah. That's really powerful. I certainly hope, that there will be we'll see a lot more collaborations between you guys and him for sure. Cause I think it's incredible. Like there is this kind of dedicated supporter group just for the community. And so I can't think of a better way to, have him, be able to be connected to that, not just like the club, but to K-Town through you guys, because you guys do represent just more than LAFC. I think you guys are really, for people like me who are on the East Coast tuning into these LAFC games, it's really encouraging to know there is like an organized group of Koreans too that are really going to make sure that he's going to enjoy his time here, that is going to look out for him, and that he's going to be taken care of ultimately and feel supported wherever he goes. So, but I do hope we see that, manifest in more partnerships and maybe local ways of getting involved locally too. So,
absolutely.
So, yeah.
And I think for Son Heung-min, the man too, it's like sometimes because I think he's so deflective and when he moves praise to someone else, like I'm like, you don't have to be a Gandhi figure.
Yeah.
Man. Like if it's like
Dude.
you tell us what you want from this thing, and like we'll figure out how you can support you as fans. It's like
gosh.
that's also like I treat him like Jesus sometimes. Like, oh, of course he wants the best for us.
Right.
I'm like, I just want to see what kind of human you are, and like if you're into certain things, like because he gets so much scrutiny, I think that he's afraid to put himself out there. But I'm like, I hope this can be a place where he can open that up.
Is he like that in person? Like, what is he like? Just like, because there's that public persona, I feel, but you've met him a few times, right? So like, what is he like?
I met him twice, both under very like media, media constrictions there. And I think he's very aware of his media training and like the weight of his words. So he's very positive and also doesn't give you a lot to work off of. But like, I think he's also funny as hell. Like like when the supporters came to meet him the second time, he's like, you guys happy? And then we're all like, of course, what the hell? That's such a crazy thing to say, And so, I mean,
wait, where did that come from? He was just like saying it as a joke, or he was like just checking it?
Yeah, and so he saw the swarm of support, like the leaders of the 9-10 groups come through, and then we're all going there. And he just knew, he's like, you guys happy? And then all started dying laughing. We're like, well, of course, dude, this is incredible. Like that was on the same media day, And we started handing him like our scarves and putting them around, and then eventually, like, everyone saw what they're doing. They all put their scarves on, and he's like, "Guys, this is too much." It's fun. He's funny as hell. He's also like, he's a different person than the person I met 10 years ago, right? Like, hooked up like 8 years ago. Like, he and myself both have grown into like our adulthood in a lot of different ways, and I hope that because he's a captain he's forever a captain now. Like no one will ever take that away. He's become Korean captain since that time too. Like this is I want to see the leader come to really fruition in the next few years.
What are the differences you've noticed? Like do you think it's like he's shouldering more responsibility now because he's captain, or
yeah, I think so. And I think he's more comfortable speaking on behalf of the group. I think in the past he was like, he's like, I'm one person in this, and now it's more like this is our team, and like this is, I think it's a subtle shift of tone, but as being part of certain rooms like that, I'm like, oh, I understand when like you have a reputation and a steady history to be like, I know who I am, and I think that's what I hear from when he's talking to us and also beyond.
But to your point, I agree with that, because there have definitely been moments in Spurs where I definitely thought, this man needs like an anger translator. Like he needs to be, like when he was announced as Spurs captain, I was like, they like Spurs put up a reel of his like announcement, and look, Son Heung-min, I love you. I say this in good grace, but I really feel like that, like the reel was just like, he was just, the body language was just like, yes, thank you. I'm so thankful. Yeah, this is great. Like just kind of like looking down at the ground the whole time and just being super humble about it. And I was like, dude, you just been made Tottenham captain. You're like the first Korean to be made captain. Like, I don't know. Like you don't have to be like, I'm so grateful. It's not about me. It's not about, I don't know. Maybe that's just something, it stands out to more of us Korean Americans, where we're just like, we don't have to be this humble all the time. There's a certain attraction about being a more assertive personality. I don't know, but I just remember thinking like, oh, like if I was his like PR person, I would have just like wanted to work the room a little bit, because I want him to look his best, but
he's doing that on the pitch now, right? And I think in Korea games, I think it really comes out because he's speaking in like native
Sure.
native tongue.
Sure.
And but at the same time, like a captain's responsibility is also to like wrestle with the refs because like the more that you have their ear, the more they subjectively see the game in your way. And I think
That's true.
growth and respect in the way that he's able to directly communicate. I think becoming Tottenham captain as well as Korea captain at the same time was like a really big formation in that. And so like I see him now and like the way that like our younger players in LAFC look at him, I was like, oh, okay, he's got it. Like he's got the leadership that you cannot teach and you cannot buy. Like he's earned that. And that's gone across borders now because of who he is and how he conducts himself. So I think there is going to be a kind of a peeling away, not that he's not going to be incredibly overly humble all the time, but it's going to be like, I know who I am and I know what my team needs. And sometimes the team needs like a shout. Sometimes they need a kick.
Yeah, no, definitely for sure. Well, Josh, this was a great conversation. Really appreciate you coming on here. And want to, just thank you for your time. We're really just like, yeah, I'm very excited to see how the next couple months play out. I am, I guess, a pseudo LAFC fan now. I'm rocking
Shout out the Ray Rose.
Yeah, the Ray Rose. But just I just want to say, what you're doing for our community is really important. It's just very clear to me, like you see a vision larger than yourself and this club and what you're doing. Like this is for the Korean American community. This is for LA, and it's clearly like that's kind of what you're doing this for. And you really need people like that to be in this space because it's a lot of work, and not everyone's cut out for it. So I think what you're doing is incredibly important. So I just want to say that.
So much. Like that means a lot to me. Getting the respect of my Korean American peers is like what I live for. So I see you and I recognize you on the other end. I can announce here that we're going to be doing a shirt with Ray, a Son Heung-min shirt with Ray for Tigers soon. So that's going to come out hopefully before the end of the year, and that'll be a fun little thing.
Okay.
And I think as it sounds like, and I wanted to kind of close, is like, this is the time. If you're interested in this thing, anything we've been talking about, like, and you have this like burning fan desire to be like, yo, I want to know the songs. I want to learn how to like to be a part of fan culture. Like this is the time, particularly if you're in LA, great. Like just DM us at LAFC_TSG on Instagram. And like, we'll get you set up with the membership. If you're not from LA, like let's meet up, let's do things together. Like I said before, like we need to keep looking for ways that are maybe non-conventional to figure out how we can organize and meet together around fandom. I think it's one of the most fun things to actually organize for, which is what I'm hoping that, we have a little more luck on this way. Being supporters is so natural to us. Like it's a lot for us to be convinced about what to support. But once we're there, like every single Korean American person who listens to this knows that no one can out-chan us, no one can out-loyal us, no one can outbeat us in anything. So this is the time to join. If you are into the footy, into soccer, into culture, into community, like find your local supporters group. And if not, find Tigers and let's build something together. I really believe that we have a chance to bridge all that together.